When we want to share our drawing with a client, we may want to show them multiple views of our model space, and so for this we would use a layout. And down here you can see that we've got the model space tab and a default layout 1 tab, and this is where we see our paper space. It's a 2D space that shows our page in white, and then we have a dotted line that shows our printable area. And by default this is usually set up as an A4 sheet. Now on my page you can see I've actually got a copy of my model space already on there, and this is in a border, and this is called a viewport. Now we'll talk a little bit more about viewports in the next tutorial, but for now I'm just going to delete out this viewport so that I've got a blank page. And I do that by selecting the border and pressing delete. AutoCAD by default will create viewports whenever you create a new layer. You can turn that off in the options by unchecking the create viewport in new layout option and clicking OK. If we want to name our layout, we can actually come down to the bottom here and double click, and we can, very similar to Excel, rename our layout. Now I'm going to create one called A0 Landscape and press enter. Also similar to Excel, we can right click on the tab and we get some options, and here you can see we have rename, we can delete the layout, or we can create a new one. We also have a plus button here that we can use to create new layouts too. Now we can also delete layouts, but you will find that you will never be able to delete all of the layouts. You'll always be left with a default layout 1. You can see that we can create a new layout from a template as well, and AutoCAD comes with some sheet sets that are predefined, and if we select one of these we get an A1 piece of paper on this particular one that already has a border and a title block and everything's set up ready to go. Okay, so I'm just going to rename this, and the next thing we need to do is set up our page size. So I'm going to go to the layout tab and I'm going to click on page setup, and you can see that I've already got my layout selected, so I'm going to click on modify, and that opens up the page setup, which is very similar to the print setup dialog as well. Now in here you can see that I can select a printer, or I can have it set to no printer. It really doesn't matter, but if you've got a printer selected here, then it will limit the paper sizes that you can select depending on what that printer is capable of printing. So I'm going to select no printer, and that will allow me to select any of the paper sizes that AutoCAD knows about. So now you can see that I can select A0. Now you can see there's two options for A0, and that is because we've got a landscape or a portrait version. So I'm going to select the landscape, which is 1189 by 841 millimeters. You can see the plot area is set to layout because we're creating a layout, and this is probably the most important step, is to make sure that you have your scale set to 1:1, because we're setting up a paper size here for our layout and we don't want to scale the paper down. Changing the scale here would be similar to enlarging something on a photocopier, for example, and we don't want to do that. So the third step is really important. Keep that scale set to 1:1 and click OK. We now have a page that is set to A0.